You have made it to Stu and the Nunn, an online radio show that looks to inform, educate, and hopefully make you laugh. Stu and the Nunn is a show focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on our show chat room, via our Facebook page, and on Twitter. Like to thank those who make this show possible and allow us to bring it to you. Our show sponsors are Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Stu and the Nunn. Little Christmas remix in there, Toby. I played some of that last week, a different song with the deputy one time, but I had to bring some back for you. What'd you think of that, man?
Well, I appreciate it because, Christmas music is either really good or really, really bad. And, there's some things that I'm like partial to, and Trans-Siberian, Orchestra, being one. I'm like partial to that. Is that what's playing outside your house right now?
I don't know right now, but there's a song playing right now. There's some music. There's some TSO going on out there along with a lot of others.
I appreciate your choice there. I appreciate your choice.
Thank you.
But
Thank you.
It's going down. I missed last week. Had some things going on and was unable to take a knee for a few to hop on with y'all, but Matt's always a pleasure to have one time on the show.
Yeah, he was solid, man. Growing a beard, went from no shave November to keep growing it December. I don't know what it. I grow each time.
God bless his heart. Yeah. I love it.
Looking sharp. We covered a lot of topics, and it was just. It was solid, and before I knew it, an hour 15 went by. It was like we were just going from one thing to another and hit on a number of things, and it just flew by when it's just he and I, and filling in as guest host, the second time on the show. We talked about Scott from the week before, and the impact on that, and just how small our world. We talked about you and I know that we always have small army stories, right? Where you run into someone you used to serve with, but to have it with him and Scott from two different, just happened to be two different guests that had this connection. They weren't tied by military per se or some other event, right? Just somehow they were good friends. And Sheriff Lamb too, who we've also had on the show. So yeah, it was good. It was good.
Small world after all. It really is.
That's never going to play on my Christmas lights or on this show. So just in case that was the only time you were going to.
What about this land is your land, this land is my land?
Well, yeah, we could do that. I could play a number of other Disney songs because not too many people are listening to those since they are just laying people off and firing left and right. But
and canceling people,
canceling like a culture. What? Yeah.
Like how dare you? Speaking of canceling, not counseling. Well, some of these people do need some counseling.
Wall to wall type, but yeah.
Well, exactly. Woodshed. Some of the stuff that's going on with this cancel culture is I'm actually starting to for a while I was annoyed. Now I'm just downright entertained at what they are trying to cancel people for.
Explain if you would. There must be a case in point you're thinking about.
So we'll start with really good friends of mine friends of the family, just wonderful people live in Napa, California. Shout out to the Jinx family. Um and they own this wonderful vineyard out there called Robinson Family Vineyards. If you're ever in Napa, you got to go check them out. You got to get some of their wine. You got to get a tour, get down on that flatbread. Um, but Robinson Family Vineyard, great place, Napa, California. Live in Napa, California. High school were the Indians, and they went through this whole we can't have that, name. And so they canceled it, and they put up a vote. They let the kids vote. The kids voted to have the Indians, and then their second choice was to be the Grizzly Bears or something like that. And then the school board just decided their own thing, and I don't know what they are now, but this cancel culture is it's getting out of hand. So I'm gonna bring it to hockey. Football. Right now, we got a football team out there that doesn't have a name. But they're like, well, we're going after hockey, and they start with the Chicago Blackhawks.
Ooh, not a good team to start with if you're gonna.
Right, here we go. It's I don't think I want to fight a contender. I think I want to go straight for the heavyweight champ. Right. I'm only 135 pounds, and I want Tyson. Went for Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah.
That scene in The Last Crusade, choose wisely. They grabbed the wrong cup. They did not choose wisely.
I did not hear that they're going after them. This is. I was not tuned into this news.
So the Chicago Blackhawks, they were like, "Hey, thanks for engaging with us. Appreciate the feedback, but we're gonna take a hard pass. That's a no.
Yeah.
We're gonna stand by it.
Big hard no there, Squirrely Dan. Yeah.
Yeah, big hard no, right? Texas size. And so they're like, all right, we're not done. They go after my team. That's right. The Vancouver Canucks.
Can I ask you, this is my own education, being around Canada a lot, what is a Canuck?
Oh, so a Canuck is just an awesome dude.
It's just like a slang for Canadian, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's some cultural implication to it in terms of what they did for a job.
Okay.
How they earn their living, how they earn their pay.
Is it a hard-working blue-collar kind of?
Yeah, lumberjack type.
I gotcha. I never have known. I never know. I thought it was always a slang for just Canadian,
Yeah. No, it's a common term. In their logo, they have an orca, which is the scientific name of a killer whale.
Killer whale.
Killer whale. And so they're like, you can't have orca in your emblem, in your logo, in any way, because that's appropriating the culture
of sea life?
First Nations.
Oh,
I was like,
sea life.
All right. And here's the sad part. They go after the Chicago Blackhawks, the best unpaid producer in the history of all media,
all over it.
Throws it up there, right? The Chicago Blackhawks, which is actual name of a tribe.
Yep.
They're hard no. There's history. The Blackhawks were a pride nation of people. They were good. This is an homage to them, just like the land of Lincoln.
Right.
Vancouver, they get nervous in the service, and they're like, "Oh, what?" Maybe because they're Canadian, they're like, "Oh, sorry, oh, sorry, we offended you," and I'm like, "This is why it's so entertaining. How is the scientific name of a mammal?" And it doesn't matter. So, I grew up on the west coast of Canada. It's no big secret. Hey, shout out to the Pacific. Get out on the Pacific there. You don't have to go far, and you don't need to be in very deep water. And there's a very good chance you're going to have an encounter with a killer whale.
Killer whale. Yeah.
killer whale.
Let me ask you real quick, Toby, if I can. Are the Phoenix Coyotes next because they're appropriating
Yeah, see,
Mexican
like you're
Mexican
with me.
smugglers?
Oh
Right.
man, I've been like in my head rehearsing this comedic bit because
We didn't even talk about this. I was
yeah,
going through all the names. I'm like
yeah,
Phoenix Coyotes. You're appropriating the Mexican human traffickers. It's
right. So you just spoiled my whole comedic bit.
damn.
But
My bad.
that's all right. I'm gonna send it anyway. Because in my head I rehearsed it. The no, like how can you take a the scientific name of a prolific species that exists? It has nothing to do with culture.
Right.
Like, and the reason I say it has nothing to do with culture is because the coastal tribe, they didn't hunt these things. Like, uh, man has not done a good job of engaging in warfare against the killer whale.
If anything, we put them in SeaWorld and teach them some
Like,
cool tricks. I got
yeah,
lots of video and footage. Of
like we've done a good job of making them like dependent on substances.
right.
We've done a good job of teaching them to do some tricks, to entertain us, and we've allowed them to kill hippies. So, like, we're not appropriating or misappropriating anybody's culture by having a mammal as part of a thing.
Right.
With that, it goes to coyotes, where there is a connotation. There's no negative connotation to an orca, by the way. It's not someone says, you better shut your orca mouth.
No.
Like said no one ever. Like
no one ever said like you're about as I don't know what it was, something to do with their fin. Anyways, yeah,
you're about as slimy as an orca. Like
yeah.
No, like everyone's like, man, they're kind of savage. They're tactically sound. They're family oriented. Who hasn't seen Free Willy?
Yeah.
Like
Free Willy. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't see them going after the Mighty Ducks. Also a Disney franchise.
Is a Disney franchise appropriating waterfowl?
Right.
Cultural appropriation. I don't know. Yeah.
But the coyotes.
Yeah. It's
they could go after the coyotes, but they won't.
Yeah. Oilers. What about the Oilers, man? Appropriating people that work hard, like Canucks.
Oh, how dare you?
Right. I don't
how
know.
dare you appropriate the lost culture of the greatest NFL team that ever existed in the city of Houston? How dare you rub salt in the wound of all those fans from Houston by allowing a team also in the oil industry, also in a like that's how stupid we are.
Yeah.
Like pretty soon they're gonna be like, how dare you?
Well, when we talk about this cancel culture, I'm gonna move real quick position to something else. It's coming. They don't go by what's good for the goose, good for the gander on most of this, right? There's a lot of things. I was on the air today with Dave Bellavere, and we were talking about some stuff locally here in Western New York, and one of the things I talked about was like, oh, it's kind of nice seeing this cancel culture come back around. They don't do well with it, right? That the side that initiated this, but I did hear that Dianne Feinstein has a school named after her, and the cancel culture is going after to get. Not only are they trying to get in San Francisco, get a Lincoln High School name changed. There's a school named after Dianne Feinstein they're trying to get changed. I don't know the story behind it yet. Maybe Rob does, but I thought that was hilarious. That she's the epitome of the left, up there with a few others, and for some reason she can't have a school named after her anymore, and they're going after that. So it's it is definitely they don't like it. The tables being turned on themselves, and it's going to come back and bite them.
No, and that. So, I've deliberately, strategically, and intentionally not discussed the outcome of the election.
I wasn't talking the election. I was talking the name of the school.
I'm just saying me.
Yeah.
I'm saying like I haven't done that because like no good can come from the conversation. But I will say this: the one caveat to all that is, for 4 years, we've heard nothing but like this negative. All that cancel culture, all that, like AOC, like wanting people to be doxxed if you like donated or contributed or supported Trump. I need the list of sycophants because we're gonna like all that stuff. Like, it's coming home to roost.
Oh yeah.
It is coming home to roost. And
Oh, thank you, Rob. Rob just gave us
There it is,
the reason
Rob.
why.
There it is.
Coming
Yeah,
through, bringing it strong.
yeah. And that's a good example. It's like, well, this one time Dianne Feinstein let a Confederate flag fly outside City Hall. It's like, yeah, when was she in City Hall? Like 50 years ago? How long has
Yeah.
she been in office?
Right, right, yeah. Nobody's canceling Joe Biden for speaking at the funeral of an admitted Klansman, right? No,
No,
they're not canceling that. It's
no, like,
selective compliance, right? Like my
yeah,
old company commander, now General Abrams, told me one time when I was in E5, he was a captain. Hey, everything wrong in this world is because of selective compliance.
yeah,
They only comply with the rules when it benefits them.
yeah. And that's the thing. It's like it's all coming back to roost.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter. Like you can put, someone used to say, you put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig, right?
Mm.
Like every day, I'm getting these news alerts. You know, Biden selected all female press team. First to ever do that. It's like, no,
No, I didn't think he was.
like no, factually wrong.
Well, I don't know if you remember back in the '80s, President Bill Clinton at the time took claim to being the first black president of the United States because of something way back in his history, and that was
Yeah,
before like 23andMe. Who knows how many more were
and,
there?
and he could play the saxophone.
And he played saxophone and was on Arsenio Hall. And then Obama came, and that one kind of faded. Everyone forgot that Bill, white hair Bill Clinton was the first black
Yeah.
president of the United
But like
States.
all these things, like this cancel culture, or like we have to be you got to be the first. Like Pete Buttigieg is going to be like the first openly gay person. Blah 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 blah.
On
It's
the
like
cabinet, yeah.
there's been a openly gay dude on the cabinet for the last 4 years.
Uh,
The longest running cabinet member in the Trump administration is super gay. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you missed that? Oh, like
Also, the first gay ambassador, I think he
there's
was. The
there's
first.
never been an African American that's led the military. I don't know. There was this chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Like,
Yep.
I think they kind of lead the military, and I'm pretty sure. And you could ask me,
I think that counts as command time.
yeah, if that counts. And it's like, I'm pretty sure Colin Powell's like would identify as African American,
I think so.
aka black. Like, so, but I do want to talk about that choice. I do want to talk about the choice of General Austin because that dude's a shit show. Yeah,
I remember him being the ISIS. I never served with him or any unit. I mean, I know he was up there and he was in charge of ISIS and the whole CENTCOM during that time. But
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. When you say he was in charge of ISIS, you mean like
Oh,
he was in charge of helping them out, right?
Well, in charge of the fight against him, I guess. A
Yeah,
little
he
Freudian
was in
slip.
charge of helping them out.
Yeah.
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 The
But I don't know how far. But you look at that. Look at that now.
Like, kind of grew.
But it's interesting real quick on Austin. There's a number of Dems that came out against him. Like they don't like the pick because the waiver that is required. I don't know if it's just because the waiver is required, but there's some reason they don't like the pick, which goes to show you something, right? They're bucking against Biden much more already before he's gotten in office than they ever did Obama.
Well, and I think it's just because like the desperation, right? So General Austin was, a mediocre officer. I think it wasn't his like battalion command time, like recruiting or something.
I don't
It was
know.
some like BS command, like not even real command. And then he did whatever he had to do to like he kissed the right ass and he got his career back on track. But like everything that he did was politically motivated under the Obama administration. He's the guy that screwed over so many great careers, for the purpose of like a social agenda. Then he was the guy put in charge.
Was he pushing the experiment and a zero
He was
tolerance?
pushing, yeah, and he was like the guy that was like, oh, your soldiers got in a firefight. Well, they must have done something wrong. It's like, oh, you mean like returning fire to a known enemy is doing something wrong? Like he was the guy that was like leading the charge on like screwing over a lot of really good military guys. He was the guy that like made sure that a lot of people are sitting in Leavenworth, and then he like takes over, like the fight against ISIS, and I dare say
He didn't do well.
he lost.
Yeah.
Like, hey, so I let's dumb it down for our non-military people. Let's dumb it down. So you have a coach. Pick any sport. You have a coach, and he gets a job because he knows like the ownership of the team, and they're like, against their better judgment, we're gonna take this guy because like he's kind of our boy, and
Right.
and then he has a losing season. Do you renew that contract? I mean, because like you're a sports team, you're in the business of winning,
Making
not
money.
losing.
Right. Selling advertisement, merch,
Right.
all that stuff.
You're in the business of winning. You lose your first season, you're probably not getting your contract renewed. If you do get it renewed, you're probably the coach for like the Dallas Cowboys, and but
It's maybe a game by game renewal. Like it may not
right,
be a yeah.
right. But they bring him back for another season, and he loses that even more. Like gets beat down even more, and has the worst season in the history of the entire franchise. Like you've got 2 full seasons of knowledge of what this guy has failed to do. Do you re-up that guy, or do you go out on the open market and you try and find the best coach that you can find, because you're supposed to be in the business of winning.
Not helping
Everything,
out, not promoting an
reason
agenda.
your business exists is to win.
Yeah, not to promote an agenda or help out a buddy.
Right. Like your job is to win. The job of the military
Is to win.
is to win.
Yeah.
Like win. Like
They're not like a sports team. Some sports teams go, we're
there's
rebuilding.
not an acceptable
right,
loss.
Right. Some sports teams like we're rebuilding this season. We know we're not going to do good, but we're going to build the experience. Like we're going to get through the season and finish last, but we're going to come back. Not the military. It's every time they step on the field, it's victory is the only option, and that's acceptable. And you don't put someone up there that you're just trying to hook up. Right.
Yeah, and but this is the interesting thing about the state that we're in right now, is you have one side that's been paying attention. And what I mean by that is you have one side that have engaged their critical thinking skills and have been paying attention and are actively engaged in the seeking of information.
Right.
You have another side that believe that they can say anything they want and it makes it true. And if you don't believe it, they can cancel you. Like you just don't exist. Like you are not part of the world. And people are coming out and saying things, and it's like, it's got to be the first person to do this. It's like, did you not know that we've had a gay cabinet member for a minute? Did you not know that we've had women in the highest offices? Like, do you remember like Janet Reno?
Right.
I mean, like Will Ferrell did a great job, impersonating her. Like, we've had female
Hillary Clinton,
governors,
Secretary of State's,
like
National Security
Madeleine
Advisor.
Albright.
Yeah.
Was she any good? Condoleezza Rice? I'm saying good ones,
Right.
like
Okay.
I could say the not so good ones too, like
Right.
Hillary Clinton. But
I said Hillary Clinton, but I mean still. But yes, Sandra Day O'Connor, right? For before our RBG, right? It was Sandra.
Like,
Yeah. But
they're
just not on the
but
right, not on the side that has the megaphone, right? The side that has the megaphone.
and that's the thing is there's a side right now that are just saying things, and like they're not based in fact,
No.
and they're not based in reality. They're just like, well, I think it would be really cool, so I'm going to say this.
Right.
And when they say things like that, we get things like the Green New Deal.
Mm.
We get things like defund the police. We get things like,
autonomous zones.
Autonomous zones.
Yeah. You got these people over in Washington, whatever, that haven't paid their mortgage since 2017, and the
Like,
they built a wall and barricade around them. Says no, you can't evict them. Like what?
yeah.
Yeah, it's no, you're right. It's coming home to roost, right? We see it right now. Look at
That's the thing. It's like it's coming home to roost because sooner or later, now, when they were in opposition, when they were in opposition of the president, when all these factions, especially the media, were in opposition of the president, they could get away with saying that stuff because there was like they had a target.
right.
Now they don't have a target. And when you don't have a target, like it's the old saying, if you're looking for the crazy person on the bus and you can't find him, you're the crazy person.
That's right.
Like you're now the target. And all that stuff, like all that hate that you spewed, all that orange man bad, all that stuff, like it's coming back to roost. And you might have this feel good moment because
and I want to hit on with it. You know why? Because when you talked about the target, we used to call it like in the military, right? If there was one screw up, like that was the commander's pet, right, or the first sergeant's pet. Like as long as that dude's around, I can get away about anything because that dude has a bullseye on him, right? He can't freaking sneeze without somebody up his butt. We used to call him the pet. Well, Trump has been the pet for the media. They could focus, right? And he doesn't back down. He doesn't shy away. He gets right in front of them and just goes toe to toe. Now what are they going to do, right? What's the late night talk shows? What are the news media is going to talk about? They've been on this whirlwind for 4 years. Like, what are they going to do? What the whole it bleeds, it leads. What are they going to come up with to make people want to tune in? Biden's not going to be tweeting stuff. He's not going to be going toe to toe. They don't even throw him a hard question, right?
no, like and you're absolutely right. And all this stuff is coming back to roost. And I'm going to start with like the one thing that has been affecting the majority of people in the world in the past year, and that's COVID-19. And all this COVID stuff, it's either based in fact or it's based in fiction.
And they're losing the trust of the American people thinking it's fact every day. Every time a politician says something and does the opposite and gets caught doing the opposite. Every time they say, do this. No, don't do this. Yes, do this. Right? Every time they say, well, the test isn't that accurate, or well, we get a lot of false positives, all this stuff. That makes the degree of trust drops every day by the American people because of crap like that.
So the change in leadership
if not
of this
the globe
country is not going to affect how this disease performs against humans. So it's either a really, really big deal and 300,000 people have died from it, or it's not.
Right.
And
if it's not, then what was this year? What was the last
right.
9 months for, right?
And when that realization comes to bear, how do you defend yourself?
And here's what's happened, Toby. Here's what's key. A lot of people don't realize this. Why? Because the media is not telling them. December 31st, all of the other COVID protections by Congress run out. Eviction protection is over. January 1, landlords can start tossing people. They're not right now. They're barred from evicting people. All the extra pay, all that kind of stuff, run out. And they're looking right now. We saw for months that the Congress did not want to work with President Trump, even though he ended up willing to give more than they wanted, right? And now that Biden, once the election happened, then of course Pelosi brazenly comes out and says, well, yeah, now Biden's in it. We're willing to work with us. Again, dropping the American confidence, trust even more. But at the end of this month, December 31st, it isn't like 2021 is going to get better for everybody. In fact, there's a shitload of people, millions, whose what few protections are left or extra money is coming in because of all the earlier laws passed, all end, right? Yeah. And unless Congress does something extravagant in the next week or so before they go to recess, they're going to punch out, go home, and these people are going to get tossed. These businesses right now, we see it right now. The country is standing up. They've had enough. We're at we see the front recon troops, the forward line trace of people who are saying, "I've had enough. I'm standing up. I'm not going to." It's not just a gym owner in New Jersey. It's not just it's not a hair salon person in Dallas. It's happening across the board, and it's 2021 is going to be worse.
Yeah, I mean it's happening in Canada. You know, like Canada's got a huge situation with a guy bucking the system up there, a barbecue owner.
Oh, really? I haven't heard about that. I'm not up on my Canadian news.
East side. You know, the Mounties got him, but the people that it's so there's this young woman owns a restaurant, been fighting to try and keep herself and her employees alive, and they tell her that after she invests a ton of money building an outside area, putting up tents and doing all this stuff, they're like, no, you don't meet the criteria, you're not going to be able to open. And you know, this life-saving ditch effort that she made for her business, you know, falls flat. In the same parking lot, Hollywood comes in and sets up the exact same thing, no criteria, none of that, so that they could, you know, film a movie and have catering and stuff like that.
Right.
You know, like people are pushing back.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like there's a video, and you know, there's this lady, you know, and her husband that got kicked off a plane because their 2-year-old, you know,
wouldn't put a mask on.
Right. Which the CDC they don't recommend actually that children wear masks. They recommend the opposite. And it's just like this control thing. This is what's going to come back to roost, because that wasn't, you know, some outspoken conservative Trump lover that got kicked off the plane. You know,
right.
That was a very compliant, you know, believing in the system young couple. And, you know, like they're now the target.
Right.
Yeah. And, you know, they've had this target for 4 years, and then they've been able to like openly target anyone that supports, like, if you like Orange Man, you're a sycophant, you're a racist, I mean, they've made the term patriot a negative term.
That was said earlier in the chats. They're going to go after New England Patriots next because
they've made patriot a negative term.
Right.
If someone says they're a patriot, now it's like, oh well, you're a gun-toting, rebel flag waving, you know, like you must be a white supremacist.
It's almost they've almost made the American flag a negative term. Like, you want to play the American flag? Right?
They have made the negative flag.
They definitely made the blue line flag, right? The Blue Lives Matter flag a bad thing. We've seen schools and all kind of issues going on.
But they've made the American flag bad because that's what they're protesting.
Right.
And like that's like one of the things that blows my mind is the American Olympic Committee is like, well, we're not going to place sanctions or penalize someone that protests, you know, like the national anthem and stuff at the Olympics. It's like, if you're not fucking proud to represent this country, you shouldn't be on the team.
You know who else who protested the flag? Colin Kaepernick. Just gonna say, started back then, right? You can say whatever you want, right? Yeah. But if you can't respect, I mean, I wish that our founding fathers had put this in there. Where, you know, I know it was like, if you cannot respect and appreciate this country, gives you something. You know, I don't know, maybe you get mandatory military service. Maybe it's like, well, then you need to give in. You need to put some skin in the game or some kind of service or something. But it's like, yeah, but Olympics is a great thing. You're representing the United States of America, right? There's no other country either. There's not a country, Western, third world, first world, whatever, that would let you go to the Olympics to represent them and disrespect them at the same time. They would snatch you up in a heartbeat. Yeah. Right? Whether you're on the Jamaican bobsled team or you're on the Russian figure skating team, or no matter what you're on, right? You could be on the French fencing team. They're going to snatch you up if you disrespect their country in front of the world stage. Not this country. God forbid that we hold someone accountable, because we got to be above and beyond reproach in somebody's eyes. Not sure whose eyes that are. Anyways.
No, like, you know, this whole Make America Great Again, you know, the hatred for that term, the hatred for the flag, you know, that's all coming back to roost. You know, in the previous administration, the first lady, you know, made an impassioned speech, and, you know, in part of that speech, she was like, you know, this is the first time that I can say that I've been proud of my country. You know, you're like, you're the first lady of the country. You should never
Right.
publicly say anything disparaging about the country you represent, like ever,
Hey,
whether
Toby.
you believe it or not.
Toby, I got a quick question for you. I was thinking about this the other day. I may have mentioned it on last week's show. I don't remember, but remember when the cool thing was that hashtag resist? Is that still cool? Can we still do that? Because I think there's about 74 million people that would totally be up for that hashtag. I mean, I don't know if I haven't seen any signs in my neighborhood like I did 4 years ago, but that was like a cool thing. It was like hashtag resist.
Yeah,
I think we can still use that word, but
yeah.
just a
You
thought.
know, like, well, you're appropriating their culture, so you'll probably get canceled for it.
Mm.
But the
There's a lot more stuff I get canceled for. That's for
right,
sure.
but here's the thing: is like I'm going to say the same thing today that I said whatever many years ago, where people are like, "Not my president." It's like, yeah, he is. And hey, guess what? Joe Biden's my president.
Yep.
I don't have to like it. I'm not excited about it,
It doesn't mean I voted for him. He's the
but
president, the country I
but
live in.
but he's still a president,
Right.
and you know, like that. That's what it is.
The question
But
is,
I don't need to
Toby,
be told. But I
Toby,
don't need to be told to move on.
Toby. Next year, in like a year, will you be saying Kamala's my president? I mean, are you going to be behind that?
Well, if that's if that's the political process that takes, I mean,
Yeah.
I have no doubt. I mean, we found out that we've got Hunter Biden under investigation since 2018, federal investigation. You know, like, hey, they got the smoking gun.
Yeah.
You know, like,
And they had it.
so it wasn't convenient for the election. That doesn't change the facts. You know, Congress is looking into them. You know, you got senators, that have, raised the flag on some of the stuff. So some of the stuff's going to come out, and all the things that people like I said, this stuff comes to roost. It comes home to roost. If you go after somebody for, like, the Russians influenced the election for 4 years, you go after somebody for all that stuff. What goes around comes around. You impeach a guy for something that didn't happen, but you have the smoking gun for the guy that it did. Like, it's going to come home to roost.
Yeah.
And that's why it's like, we have to be better people. Like, we have to, and it starts with us.
Thank
Starts with
thank
us.
goodness. Let me just say this. Thank goodness this country does still not rely on the three big networks to tell them what's going on in this world, and we have this open medium of bloggers and alternate news sites and social media and people doing videos and TikToks and Twitter and Periscope, where you can see and hear really what's going on. Because if we still depended on the big three like we did back in the 70s and 80s, you would, and it just makes you wonder. I kind of wonder sometimes, looking back to it, how much was this country controlled by them? We just didn't know how wide and deep this was. Was it even around? We don't even know.
And when they don't have a target, who are they going to target? And that's why I'm like, I think some of the stuff is hilarious. Like, Rob's got the
Oops, sorry.
hey, welcome back, Colton. Long time no talk to you.
Yeah.
But the Eric Swalwell story, like, bro,
They keep trying to put that. It ain't gonna go down. They're not. No one's gonna forget about that.
Like, come on, man. You're on an intelligence committee, and you don't know that, like, China's trying to, like, get at that,
Yeah.
and just like, no, she really likes me. Like,
A private
like
snuffy.
Really,
That private snuffy. That stripper with 2 kids is not. No, I love her. She's awesome. I'm getting us an
she
apartment.
doesn't want my BAH.
She's not gonna be a dependent upon him. Yeah.
Like, so some of the stuff, like, I'll like, long-winded way of saying, like, I'm not saying I told you so. I'm just saying I know how to make really badass popcorn, and I feel like I'm gonna be eating it for like 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's coming, and it's the people have we whet everyone's appetite, right? That's one thing Trump has done, and I'm not sure, and I think this is what's going to happen. people liked latching onto those tweets, and they I mean, we're a society that watches NASCAR because someone wants to see a wreck. We're a society that watches Funny's home videos because we want to see the dad get hit in the nads with a freaking baseball bat at a game or something, right? That's what we like to see. So they got to see a lot of craziness the last 4 years. People are going to be hungry. They're going to want to see that video. They're going to want to see that social media of something happening. And they're not just going to sit back and watch Joe and Kamala just coast on through 4 years. They're going to be digging for something. We are a society of controversy, not a society of pacifists. So it's going to be they're going to feast on something. You're right.
Like, I can't remember her name. That's how much she has meant to me in my life. But there was the young junior congresswoman out of the state of California.
Oh yeah, the menage a trois there. Yeah.
Yeah, the thruple or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
And like they did her like that, man. Wait till some of this other stuff comes out.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm not, again, I said this 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago. If you're on a plane and you're like hoping for the pilot to crash, like, you're an idiot. Right? I'm not hoping that America fails. In no way. I want America to recover. I believe in the American dream. I'm an immigrant. I'm a business owner. That's why I'm here. Like, I'm living the American dream. I want to continue to live the American dream. And
what I'm hoping for,
but I do like entertainment.
Yeah. But what I'm hoping for is that there's the checks and balances stay in place, and that the Senate does not go Democrat, so that someone can keep, because they've shown in 8 years of Obama that nobody is willing to stand up to whatever the DNC wants and says needs to happen. And if that happens, that's okay, because midterms will happen. What happens every midterms? Everything flips, because the Democrats, if they are all in charge, will either show everyone that, look, they really did have some good ideas and answers, and for the first time, and Joe Biden will show that regardless of the past 47 years, now that he's in charge, he can actually make a difference and does something awesome. Like you talked about the pilot of the plane. I hope that happens. Man, I hope we can keep improving the economy. I hope we can keep improving all the great unemployment numbers that Trump built. I don't want to see that fail. I don't want to see my 401k go down to a 201k. I want to see it all keep climbing. And then, but if it doesn't, and his policies aren't good, and Congress keeps running a single digit favorable percentage, like less than 10, when I mean single digit, then in 2 years, there's a chance to put more folks in. Because what we are seeing, Toby, from a young man in a wheelchair to number of vets after vets and other people standing up, there's a lot of folks that are stepping up and saying, and maybe it's because of AOC, that are saying, I may be young, I may be new, I may not have a ton of experience, but I can run for office, and they're convincing people that they can do it. In 2 years, who knows what the turnover will be like.
Here's the thing, though, and did that young man win that from South Carolina?
I think it was North Carolina. I think he did win. Yeah. I believe he did. Rob will tell us if he didn't. I'm pretty sure he did.
I was kind of paying attention to his race, and then when everything went south, and you couldn't get reliable information, I only looked into a couple of cases.
Right.
But the young guys and gals that are joining the fight are impressively qualified,
right?
From what I'm seeing,
right?
I'm seeing some that are horribly unqualified, like AOC,
right?
Like some of those. But I mean, you got guys like Will Hunt, guys that served this country, did time in the CIA, and saw the world and understand like the existential threats that we're dealing with. We have
served as the president's personal physician and accomplished life in the military, doctors and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, we're seeing some tremendously qualified people going forward to office, and they're prevailing, and I believe like we are going to see in the future, in the near future, I believe that we're going to see, you know, the passing of the torch.
Right.
And the reason I believe this is twofold. One is, you know, like single digit approval rating. And two, we just had a dynamic leader that did a really good job of reminding everybody how corrupt the institution of politics is. And,
Right.
you know, like the whole drain the swamp thing, the people that believed that 4 years ago believe it today. Because that's not a thing about a person, that's a thing about an institution. And the people that voted to drain the swamp, they still believe that.
Right.
And
Right.
still voting that
And they
because
and they don't. I don't think they believe this next administration is going to keep that going.
no, I mean like I mean
Right.
I think everybody that he's announced pretty much is, you know, a repeat, right? Like
Let me ask you one thing. I want to make sure I hit on this because this hasn't been covered a lot. But when we talk about coming home to roost, eating your own, it kind of plays into it. And that is his pick for the Secretary of the VA. Even your good buddy Paul Reichoff stood up and tweeted and came out against that. And when I had to laugh because even Reichoff said, "I'm not a Democrat," which I was just like, dude,
you're 100% a Democrat.
that nose is long, Pinocchio.
Yeah.
You can't even walk down the street.
And for the record, for everyone listening, Paul Reichoff's not my friend.
I know.
Like,
I was being
yeah,
facetious. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but even he came out against it. This corporate, buddy and non-military, non anything to be the Secretary of the VA, an organization that has been broken for so long that its name itself implied being broken and just bad service and bad care, except for the last couple of years. Is now got someone put in there. Just your thoughts on that pick, and you talked about General Austin, but another military
So
based
the
pick.
I have 3 points that I want to make on this pick. First and foremost, if you are going to run the second largest institution in the United States, you need to have intimate understanding of the institution. And I don't mean that you've been well briefed and you've read some white papers and
Right.
you have like executive experience. I believe that if you are truly going to represent the needs of any group that you lead, you need to be endeared to that group. So my first point is putting a non-veteran in charge of the future of our veterans, I think is ill-advised. Uh, Regardless of qualification, people will never get past that point.
Right.
To share a quick little example, there's a wonderful Army officer, West Point professor, uh, great author. I think now Colonel. At the time I met him, he was Lieutenant Colonel type, Grossman, and he wrote this book called On Killing. And I read that book because, you know, like many infantrymen and combat veterans, I'd experienced the awesome weight of and responsibility of human life, and that's on both the giving and receiving of life and death. And they brought this guy in to talk to us, and I read his book, and I was like super impressed by it. And I was like, man, this guy makes some good points on some things. I disagree with him on some others. And then I found out he'd never been to combat. He never killed anybody. Therefore, like, what was his frame of context to tell me how to deal with now he was correct on some things,
Right.
right? And I'm not like completely dismissing him. I'm just using him as an example that I immediately discounted him and everything that came out of his mouth from that point forward, because how could he possibly know what I'm feeling,
Right. Right.
what I've experienced? And with it being one of the largest institutions in the portfolio of the United States government, to put somebody in there that represents one of the greatest treasures that the United States has in terms of its veterans, the people, the families that have paid the price with their time and treasure and with their bodies, their physical well being, their mental well being, that are afflicted for the rest of their lives. We're going to put their faith and confidence in somebody that has no connection to them. Like,
Not even
that's
run an organization of that size. It'd be different if it's like, well, he knows how to run and keep an organization
right.
running, and but it doesn't even
The
have that. I mean,
like having the executive experience is one thing, but this is a different endearment.
right,
You're not endearing to employees. You're endearing to a national treasure.
right,
And I really, really think that my first point, that is not going to go well. And he's not going to have the confidence of the people. And this is a program, this is an institution that has lacked confidence of its people. You need to put somebody in there that inspired. Now, a lot of people disagreed with General Shinseki, but I tell you what, when General Shinseki, Eric Shinseki, became the secretary of the VA, people looked past the fact that he did the stupid black beret thing and looked at him as a combat wounded, partially amputated veteran of war, and knew that with what he had to deal with physically and what he was needing from the VA for the rest of his life, he would be good. And being the fact that he was the Army Chief of Staff, he had the executive experience to lead that size of a force.
right, right.
Now there are guys out there. I didn't necessarily like some of Trump's picks. I personally thought that the guy that really needed to get the job in the last administration, although he became a cabinet member, I believe that he got the wrong posting, and that was the former great governor of the state of Texas, the greatest governor that Texas has ever had, in the form of Rick Perry. Being a veteran and so impassioned by veterans, and having the executive experience of running the most successful state in the history of the country, multiple uh, terms, like, that's the kind of guy you need. Now, point two, this guy was responsible for some of the greatest failures that the VA had, because he was put on a council by a previous administration, and he gave advice that was so ill-advised that it caused and disrupted the flow of the VA. And so you had this outside source speaking into the VA on very specific things like wait times and dealing with people. And you got an institution that people need to get help, and they have to wait so long for help that they kill themselves in the parking lot.
Right.
And this guy was part of Obama's panel to help, like, reduce some of those obstacles. Last time I checked, people are still killing themselves in the parking lot.
Right. Less people and things like that because
Less
of,
people now because of some of the moves that have happened in the past 4 years.
right, exactly. This is a good case of that coach that keeps losing and got put back in.
Right.
Right.
So, like, you bring in an offensive coordinator that can't score points and make him your head coach, man, like, bad decision.
Right.
Bad point number 3 is this pick is clearly a pick of a favor owed.
Yeah.
And everybody sees it. You can't sit there and justify in his nomination the holding of that position when there's so many better qualified candidates out there. You politically can't sell this nomination.
Well, remember the old selling of the Lincoln bedroom, right? We had that whole thing. Now we have make a donation to the inauguration and get upfront seats and get tied in and get favors and all that stuff. I mean, they're so blatantly out there. I mean, they're not even trying to hide it. They're like, bring big money and get these favors and get proximity and all that kind of stuff. It's just sickening I just don't get it, man. Whether the things were stolen, whether there were ballots stuffed in, or whatever, no matter, it shouldn't even have been close. And I can't believe the American people, including family and friends of mine, looked at this candidate and said, "Oh, that's the guy I want in here because I hate that other guy." It's like,
Well,
it's
they
like,
didn't look at him.
well, they didn't look at. They did it because I hated other people. I mean, I know
Yeah.
people. I know people that aren't fans of his that said, "Well, when I compared the two, at least it's not Trump." And it's like we've talked about in the show, and I've talked to some people that are even listening and watching. Everyone that wanted to argue with me or talk about that during the campaign, no one could get past my one rule, and that is tell me why without talking about Trump. And nobody could pass it. Not family, not friends, not people I don't even know. They just couldn't do it. That should tell you something. It just blows me away. So when you say coming home to roost, I am ready. You talk about the popcorn. I got my popcorn and my extra large soda waiting for the people I know that voted for Biden to start complaining about policies and things that he puts in place. I'm going to be like, oh, no, you shut up because that's what you picked, right? That's
But
what
the
you got.
difference is, and I believe this in my heart, and I hope this to be true, that while we'll sit there with our Coke Zero and our delicious kettle corn that I make over the stove with amazing, technique, the we will enjoy the entertainment, but we're not going to disparage the people that did vote for him. We're going to say like, hey, you rig it, you ride it. We're riding it too. It sucks that you rigged this parachute and we're on it tandem.
Yeah.
But like you
Yeah.
rig it, you ride it. But I'm not gonna like go in the streets and smash windows.
No.
I'm not, and I believe that that's not what's. I believe, yeah, there's gonna be some people that, like we're gonna like resist ultimately, like whatever, dude.
You're going to
Like,
go to work, you're going to earn your paycheck, and you're going to just keep on keeping on because it's all going to change again.
and yeah, and I believe that this talk about we need to unite and we need to. It's like we weren't the ones dividing us.
Right.
Like we weren't the division problem.
Right.
And
And
so, like,
you also can't say in one breath, we're unity. We all need to come together, and then cuss out the other side and call them names. It's like,
yeah, no,
kind
like,
of see that.
and that's the thing. It's like that's up coming around.
Yep.
But yeah,
You know what hasn't changed, Toby? Your walls behind you because you didn't put up any decorations you promised to 2 years
I
ago.
still got my Christmas
You
card.
got your
from
Christmas card. I've been waiting to bring that up in this whole show. I've been like, Toby never did anything. Still got the Christmas card. You had 2 weeks.
Although I did do something like I'll try and turn it a little bit in the corner. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, there's some kind of pole stuck out of that refrigerator.
Priorities.
Okay.
Like,
I got that.
I might not have, like I have my whiteboards up, so like the workflow looks good. The aesthetic of stuff, that's a low priority.
The kegerators
But
set up, plugged in and chilling.
there is a full keg of Guinness.
Guinness?
Oh yeah,
Not Shiner. I thought you'd go Shiner.
Nitro.
Oh, you got the Nitro, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to. I've been traveling a little bit lately. I guess I need to get down to Tejas. But
Yeah, no, like you gotta come check out the Kermode World Headquarters. It's
world headquarters. That's it.
It's coming along. I was just on a really delightful conversation with the let me make sure I get my notes right. The Supply Corps Foundation of the Navy, and I get in like the green room beforehand, and like they look at me like I'm, they're all like professionally trying to like in my flannel with like, my hair, my hockey flow, like trying to be contained by like this Kermode hat. And like the one dude's like, I can tell you're an entrepreneur. And I was like, how's that? He's like, your walls. And I was like, immediately, I was like, oh, because I don't have anything on him. He's like, no, because I can tell you painted them yourself and you did a shitty job.
Because that blue corner bead. I was going to say something about that. I wasn't going to hit you all in one.
Yeah, no, like, hey, whatever, bro. Like, You know what you got to do to save a dollar, man. What you got to
That's
do
it.
to save a dollar.
Because you did a shitty job.
Yeah, but
Yeah, and you get your you get your little air can and your Christmas card from the accountant
yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever.
I love it.
But no, yeah, it's I don't know, man. We look back, before this show, I've been talking to some people. I was on with Dave today. I was telling him, we were going to do kind of a reflection. We were going to plan to look back. We always do that. This is our last show for those that are tuning in listening. This is our last show for 2020. I know about March, April, May. We couldn't wait to get to this show. We couldn't get here fast enough. But when we look back, you really only got the first 2.5 months, which are something positive to talk about. From March on, it's kind of just a dark cloud. I feel like I went above ground in the Matrix. Like I went to outside Earth, and just like it's just lightning and shit and dark and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't look good. What are your thoughts as we look back? A lot happened, starting with impeachments, and it just went downhill from there.
Yeah. So 2020, and I think, every year you kind of, in retrospect and reflection, you say, this is a year to remember, for something positive or something negative. 2020 will live in infamy. It will be a year that absolutely will be mentioned in textbooks because of the global impact of a lot of different things. One of which, being, this pandemic. The other, being, this presidential election in the United States. And so, as I reflect back on the year, it opened up, with such hopefulness. Uh, 2019 was an interesting year, and so I had a lot of hope and a lot of like, dreams. We were launching a new company. Um, you know, had a lot of big plans for different things, and so many weird things happened. Like when you talk about like the impeachment, like I couldn't believe that I witnessed such a charade. Like it's just mind blowing that what I witnessed on television was being sold to adults
Right.
in this country. I couldn't believe, and one of the things that will definitely, regardless of what side of the fence you're on, it is really going to go down. And this year really accentuated it and spotlighted it, is the fact that the media is no longer, like, in any capacity, uh, unbiased.
Right.
Like it is your job as a consumer, because you're now, media is no longer objective reporting of, events. You are now a consumer of ideology, and you are going to subscribe, most likely pay money, um, through the form of a subscription, to the echo chamber that you want to participate in. And I believe that this year, 2020, is the year that everyone's come to terms with that. And I think that's
And if
a
they
big,
haven't, if they don't recognize it, then they're just so lost. They're not even going. I
yeah.
mean,
And I think that's a big statement for humanity. Uh, I think it's a huge statement for humanity. But there are some things that are going to go down in the history books for 2020 that is probably going to piss a bunch of people off. But for the greater good of mankind, peace has been reached between so many warring countries. So many adversaries have come to the table and shaken hands. And you can argue about why, you can argue about who, you can argue about whatever. The reality is, peace in the Middle East has become a hopeful thought, not something a beauty contestant says to try and impress people.
Right.
Like it's no longer like, oh, I want world peace or peace in the Middle East. Like it's a reality coming to fruition. Now I don't know what's going to happen, if it's, but nothing will change the fact that these countries came together and made some pretty big deals. When we look at the peace that is happening in on the Korean Peninsula,
Right.
like that is just some amazing stuff that has taken place this year that absolutely is so noteworthy.
And if you look at, it's not really reaching peace. Well, it was peace by force, but the complete elimination essentially of ISIS, right? An organization that was growing unfettered and multiplying in numbers in a way that nobody could even get their arms around fast enough, was completely pretty much taken off the map and removed as a player in the world stage, much less the Middle East,
Yeah.
right? Doesn't
Well, I
mean it
mean,
can't pop back up. Lord knows that happens and all that stuff, but at least that organization was pretty much eliminated. And
no, we've had in the United States a wonderful year. Uh, you know, the least amount of terrorist attacks globally in 2020. We've had the least amount of active shooters. Uh,
right.
2020. Like there's so many things that are like,
The
if,
rioting is
if
kind of
you're,
over the top, but
what's that?
the rioting is over the top in the
Yeah,
part. But
but like again, no one's
let me ask you this: have you heard much
like,
about?
I'm not
Let me ask.
threatened or fearful of little kids trick or treating. So
Right.
like that's how I feel about riders. And
Let
I
me.
live in Texas. We got castle law, so like, come on.
Yeah. Let me ask
Like,
you this: have you heard much about combat actions in Afghanistan?
no, like
You know,
I've heard a little bit. And
not
I'm
much.
part of that.
You know what I'm
I'm part
hearing?
of that just because of people I know that are in country.
Yeah, you know what
But
I'm hearing? They're doing patrols and going on missions, and this
yeah,
pandemic is wiping out the Taliban. I'm hearing that they're finding dead dudes all over the place. That this pandemic is wreaking havoc on our enemies there.
yeah,
Obviously,
no,
they have no
it's
health care. They have none of that stuff. You know.
no, and so there's so many great things to like look at about this year. Um, but it's been a scary year personally. Uh, Probably one of the scariest years of my life personally. And but I'm always hopefully optimistic about what the future holds because I know that I live in a country, regardless of who sits in what office and who sits in what chair on what side of what bench, you know, like I live in a country that right now allows me to be the master of my destiny. The equality of opportunity is one thing, but the equality of outcome is another.
Right.
And like I'm afforded the opportunity to work on my own outcome and decide it. And for that, I will always be optimistic. The I don't think you know we can have shutdowns in the future like what we had this year. Like no, people aren't just going to abide by it.
Right.
And like I think everyone's kind of learned that lesson. I think people are going to try it, and there's going to be like mask mandates, and all that stuff. But like,
I think civil liberties are going to make a bounce back in 2021, and
I,
not
I,
because
I believe that.
and not because politicians are doing it. It's because of what politicians are doing, and that
Yeah,
will be First Amendment, that will be Second Amendment, it'll be Fourth Amendment, right? Fourth Amendment, Cuomo can put whoever he wants and say, you can only have 10 people at Thanksgiving or Christmas, but the Fourth Amendment protects you from having them come in and do that, right?
yeah.
And
No,
I think it's going to wake people up to what the
I,
rights are of this country.
the I don't know what it's like to live in your state. Um, like I enjoyed watching the press conference with him the other day where they're administering the first COVID vaccinations, and he had his paid spokesman like schlob on him for a little bit, and tell the world like what a great job he did. It's like everybody knows he didn't do a good job, like, but the the reality is none of that stuff is lawful.
Right.
And like, you're seeing more and more of these videos, people like from health departments, coming into restaurants and stuff, and telling people like that they're shutting them down. It's like, no, you're not. Like, that's not a law. Like, well, we pulled your license. Oh, okay. Like, now you're trespassing. Get out.
Right.
Like, we're seeing people push back, so I don't believe that they're going to be able to do what they'd gotten away with this year, because you know the reality is people are going to, you know this thing's either really bad or it's not.
Right.
And
If it's
you
not,
know
if it is, then one side can sit there and say this is what we were trying to protect you from, save you from. People are like, I should have listened or thank you. If it isn't, people are gonna be like, what did you just do to my life for the last year?
yeah,
What you just
it
ruined it off of speculation.
yeah, it either is or it isn't.
Right.
And people are going to react very strongly to
Now,
that.
I don't know what you're seeing. I know what I'm seeing right now, and is that right in this time when it's picked back up, a lot more people I know have it than ever did in the spring, but it also does not seem to be as bad or detrimental to people. Now, whether it's because we now are smarter, we recognize it, whether they're because they've figured out these cocktails of drugs, or whether it's a new strain that just isn't as bad. But what I'm seeing is, I mean, a lot of folks that I know, if not almost daily, for the last 3 weeks, I'm hearing of new persons that have it all the time. They seem to bounce right back in the middle. It doesn't mean they don't
Yeah,
suffer, but
the majority of people in my circle, like, I'm not going to list their names, but the majority of people in my immediate circle have all had it. Um, and out of that, only two people, so I'm going to say upwards of 30 plus people. Out of that, two people, only two people got actual medication. We're not hospitalized.
most were just told
Got
write it out,
actual,
right?
just
Write it
got
out.
actual medication. My wife, I can talk about her, without violating HIPAA. Like, my wife, tested positive multiple times. Got a little ill. Uh, the doctor's recommendation were like, "Hey, up your vitamin C, put some vitamin D in your life, and if you got something with some zinc content, why don't you pound that down too?" Um, and like, she was not ill enough to to earn anything prescribable.
Right.
So we got vitamin C gummies and vitamin D gag, and like, and that was the regimen that got her through, or her couple of days of being miserable. And like, for some people, I have a good friend whose dad's in the hospital right now, and he's like, he's having a rough go of it, but there's other factors, and I pray for him. I pray for their family. I really don't want to see this guy go, because he's a joy. But like, the other reality is dude's old. Like, when you look at the numbers, when you just statistically break it down, the majority of people that are dying from this are already above the average age
Lifespan.
of death.
Right.
Like, I know that sounds harsh. We're statistically, we're not seeing with kids. We're not, the kids are, carriers or whatever, spreaders. But they're asymptomatic. Like, we have the data now. Like, it is true that some people have died. The majority of which, that are being blamed with this, had comorbidities. Um,
That was a word that didn't exist in 2019.
when well, it existed, it just
Existed.
wasn't utilized.
Nobody knew what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. The well, I, I believe I'd heard anyway, but yeah, the reality is the majority of people like myself were very, very afraid of something, and we didn't want to like hurt our loved ones,
Right.
and kind of done the right thing. And now it's like, you know It is what it is. Now, I do know people that have lost family members, and it we got one a good friend of mine that's in the chat room right now, and like I was watching the video, like the military funeral, and it was heartbreaking. Like, man, I hate hearing guns like that, and like that that part is a reality for some families, but like I think people are realizing it's not as scary as we thought, and like there we can get on with our lives. Like we needed to, like, and I'm saying this as politely as I can, like we needed to learn, like, to take better care of ourselves.
Wash our
Like
hands.
we did need to learn to wash our hands.
Right.
Like we did need to learn that if you're not well, don't go to work.
Cover your mouth when you sneeze. Don't be sneezing in the freaking grocery store aisle and doing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Yeah. If your kids aren't well, don't send them to school. Right.
right,
Don't.
right. We've needed to we've known these things, but we needed to really learn these things. And like, again, I'm always optimistic. I think we're gonna get through this, and I am ready. I'm ready to turn the page, but I also know that this is going to be one of those years, kind of like 2001, that will come up in historical conversation.
Yeah. Because
We
it's not a year that'll be remembered. It's going to be a year that can't be forgotten.
Yeah,
Right.
and there's going to be a shit ton of kids that were born as a result of quarantines,
Some lockdowns. Yeah.
that we're going to be telling our grandkids, and we're going to be telling, and some people just be telling their kids, like,
I imagine a lot of being born. I mean, you figure March is when it started. Everyone locked down. It was cool with it. And just, work shut down, and work said, hey, we'll keep paying you. Just stay home and all that stuff. Flatten the curve. They were flattening all right. And I guess we're going to start seeing that starting about this month and next month and for next few. Yeah.
we're going to start seeing a bunch of bambinos.
Remember, you said, like, remember there. Oh, you were a war baby, right? Or you were, you were.
Yeah, you're mid-tour. You're a
Yeah.
mid-tour kid.
Right. You were. You're this. Oh, you're a quarantine baby. Oh, you're COVID baby. Yeah. What's your name?
And that's the thing. It's like,
Let's welcome little Rona to class. He's new.
yeah. So, like, there's there's Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. Like, there's Boomers.
Right.
And all this stuff. There's gonna be teenies. There's gonna be teeny babies. Like, that's gonna be a legit thing. You heard it here first, because the amount of people, like the Boomers, all coming back from the war, banging it out and, like, starting. There's gonna be teeny babies.
You think we call them Rona babies? Maybe Rona babies. You think?
I know. Like, they're gonna have to come up with, like, a better term than what I come up with.
Yeah.
That's a good thing I'm not in marketing, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna come. Maybe Generation C. Maybe that's what they'll be. Generation C. Right. I don't know. Because they're kind of running out of generation letters. But yeah. Anyways, yeah, it's been a heck of a year. It is a. You're right. There's good and bad and all. Doug put up a good thing in the chat. He talked about the last 4 years. At least the one thing is it exposed a lot of what Washington. What you kind of hit on too, Toby, is it exposed what the media is really about to a lot of people. It exposed that what Washington is about, and for those that come together against an enemy, what they're powerful or capable of doing. It also exposed that we are a faulted country, as we know, and there's nothing perfect. And if anything, it was humbling to us, because how dare we go watch some other country's election when we can't even watch ourselves? And
Yep.
it shows that sometimes we got to be taken down a notch. And you always hear the terms, there's a silver lining to dark clouds and so on and so forth. But maybe it will be that people pay more attention to our rights, and maybe it will be that more people have signed up to vote and are going to pay attention to their election and being civilly participative in local down ballots and communities and nationals and stuff. But the reality is, and maybe there's some positives to it of actually, before I go into reality, maybe there's some positive people realizing they need to live within their means, that they need to save a little bit, that they, nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is promised. People that had jobs that thought they were, there's no way they were going to lose it, and they overextended themselves in debt or on things, or focused on shit that wasn't important. People that have in the last 9 months that have sat there outside hospitals that couldn't even go in and listened and got the call that their loved one had died from this, and for weeks and months, were leading up to that, are probably now much more sober to the fact that all the noise, all the first world country crap really doesn't matter at the end of the day. It's something we've talked about, Toby, for those of us that have been to combat or faced things like that, we kind of have an appreciation of really what's important in life. Maybe the people that were consumed by the Kardashians and the Real Housewives and what the latest model of this or the latest fashion of that is today are going to take a pause or maybe now realize that there's more bigger important stuff in life than just something like that. So as I look back, I can only hope. You talk about you're the optimist. I usually call myself a realist, but in this aspect I will be kind of optimistic too, and hope that our country keeps that in their memory for a little while longer and doesn't forget this and learn some lessons from this that can be turned into a positive. That's what I'm hoping we go into 2021 with. But it's not going to end on January 1. It sure as hell's not going to end on January 21st, right? No. It's nothing's going to happen. So, yeah, that's kind of my thought back on it is we got to make the best of, you got lemons, make lemonade. We got to do the best we can. And hopefully people have taken some positive things out of this.
And popcorn. Make some popcorn.
Make some popcorn, yes. Buy popcorn from your local Boy Scouts.
Yes, and Christmas trees.
Yep. And Girl Scout cookies are still there. So, whenever they come back. But anyways, Toby, we're off for the next 2 weeks.
Yes,
you got any big plans? Kind of hunkering down with the family? Anything special?
Yeah, no, there's gonna be some hunkering. We're gonna take the time to. My father-in-law passed this year, and during the lockdowns, so we were limited on what we could do in terms of life celebration and stuff like that. His birthday was Christmas Eve, so we're going to take a little road trip to one of his favorite places and partially intern him there. So like we got that going down. That'll be good. But really just kind of hunkering down. Enjoying some family time. And
are you gonna get some quiet time? You gonna be able a chance to take a break?
I doubt it.
You gonna paint that other wall or?
Yeah, I'll probably come in here and hang some things just to get some peace and quiet. But
you should let your wife come in and decorate for you. It'd probably look really good.
No, we don't want that. Yeah. But no, it should be good. I'm looking forward. Sorry I missed last week. I'm looking forward to taking a couple of weeks off, and I'm excited to see what happens over the holidays. I always love shows when we get to come back because there's always just such great, positive, fun things to talk about, kind of like it was today, and we'll go from there. And I'm looking forward to the family time, and not that I haven't got a bunch, being quarantined with those, roughnecks, but it'll be good. But yeah,
it's
as Nate Trant says, head down, keep your powder dry.
That's it.
Great year end and Merry Christmas, everybody. Don't forget that Christmas, while it is about the kids and loving one another. And, like in that case, there's that Santa guy involved. But let's not forget that what we're really, celebrating is, the birth of the greatest, human being to ever exist. And we should, follow his example. And, we should make sure that we spend our time loving one another versus hating one another.
Yep. That is right. Not only the greatest and the greatest leader of that's ever walked this earth, and the only perfect person that's ever walked this earth. But good reminder on that. The reason for the season, I agree. It's going to be nice to have a couple weeks, and we'll be back on January 7th. That'll be Thursday, January 7th, 8 p.m. Eastern. We hope everyone is able to do just that. We know you've, like Toby mentioned, you've had a lot of time to quarantine with loved ones maybe and hunker down, but take some time, reflect, talk to, spend some time as a family or with your loved ones or good friends. I would suggest a lot of people take time, reflect, and reflect on what was most important. Look at some positive things that came out of this year. Look at some things, and those may just be lessons learned, but yeah, just take a breath, relax, because 2021 is going to hit and it's going to start full speed all over again. Because people are either going to be, they're either going to, this thing's going to be, we're going to be coming out of this, or people are going to force their way out of it. And a year ago this time, we could no way could any of us have ever conceived what this year was going to be like. So just be thankful that you have your people around you, that you have loved ones, and that you have a Lord that loves you and fashions you in his image. So with that said, we wish everyone a good night here on Stu and the Nunn, that you have enjoyed yourself and enjoyed hopefully tuning in, listening, watching us over this last year through this crazy political season, and that you will come back and join us in 2021 as we kick back off 8 p.m. Eastern, January 7th. You can't miss us. With that, everyone have a good night. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stu and the Nunn Show, and we hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at stewandthenunn.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.